Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 4pixels. Coco and Kimi are here with our guests, Buttons and Layfilet from Cacophony of Games, and we are continuing the letter. 15 minutes later, I'm heading back out, dressed for the day, my car keys in hand. Ordinarily, I don't stop for anything. There's never a need to. That's the beauty of this apartment complex. It's quiet and everyone keeps to themselves. No useless platitudes in the morning, no need to wear a smile on your face lest other people are nosy enough to ask. Today, however, the morning broadcast still plays from Isabella's room. My brisk pace slows to a stop, and a frown gradually forms in my face.
She hasn't left.
Of course, this isn't unusual. There are times when I've left earlier than she did, like last Friday before their open house. But those days are few and far between. It only happens in the direst circumstances, though the last part of that might be a bit of an exaggeration. However, with what's happened in the last few days, maybe today is one. The death of a friend isn't something anyone can brush off, and for someone like Isabella's the kind who gets attached to people easily. With Zachary, Ashton, and I, that has been the case. I can't imagine what she might be going through right now, especially when the woman was someone she owed a lot, despite their training being brief. I've given her the space last night in deference, but perhaps today might be the proper time to check on her.
Oh, whatever. I've still got time anyway.
With light steps, I move closer to her door, hand already poised to knock. Still, I don't do so until I hear her answer me.
Isabella? Belle? Are you in there?
No answer. After a second, I finally knock, lightly so I don't disturb her in case she's sleeping and has merely left the telly running last night. Never mind how she never lets that happen. Ever. Waste of electricity and all.
I just want to check on you before I leave. Is that okay? Are you going to work today? Belle?
Still nothing.
I'm about to leave. If you want, I can drop you off.
Another round of knocking. Then I'm fishing out a copy of her key from my bag and unlocking the door. She lent it years ago after I complained about the mess and offered my help in cleaning up. I thought the gesture was completely unnecessary back then. After all, I could always knock. But she never did bother taking them from me, always returning it or turning away from the conversation whenever I insist. That's how you do it, Ashton. At one point, I've simply stopped trying to hand it back to her.
Isabella? I'm coming in, all right?
Without waiting for her answer, I push the door open and step inside. Her unit's still a mess.
I'm just so glad to see that it looks normal.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna make a joke about Sayori.
Yeah. I was about to say I'm like half expecting it to like be covered in blood or help me being scrolled on the wall in red paint or blood or
Since you guys a family picture right there.
or Isabel just hanging around.
Having a good time. Instant noodle cups on the table, a pile of clothes on the side, papers strewn about everywhere, and an unkempt bed, among other things.
The noodles are yang yang. That's amazing.
This. This much is a given. Will always be a given. I've been here several times already, and I still wonder how she can function like a human being with a place in this state. However, that's neither here nor there. I'm not sure what I'm expecting, but it's certainly not finding an empty flat. Granted, she could have left earlier, far earlier than usual, but she never ever leaves without making sure she's unplugged everything. That's something she doesn't forget to do. It doesn't help that her bathroom appears unused this morning. Another habit, and it can only mean she hasn't been here since last night? Perhaps even since the morning after Miss Cooper's death. Either idea doesn't sit well with me, what with the news we've been hearing lately.
The authorities are still trying to find the cause of death for all the victims. Early investigation revealed most of them were employed under Briar Realty Corporation at the time of death. Meanwhile, BRC has refused to comment on this.
Gathering my wits, I immediately place a call to her mobile. It rings for a good minute, the sound a comfort in itself, but when another minute rolls by without her answering, well, I'm not a woman prone to panicking. Sudden bouts of temper, maybe, but never panic, despite how I may sound when speaking. And when it ultimately goes straight to her voicemail, a sigh is the only thing I let out.
All right. Tuesday, October 25th. Rebecca Gales received a housewarming invitation addressed to her parents that morning. After informing them about it, she checked Isabella's apartment and was shocked to find that she hadn't come home last night.
The pause doesn't last long, though. In the next moment, my fingers are already moving across the screen in search of the two people who might be able to help. It's Ashton's number I find first and dial. Call it habit, but even Isabella thinks he's dependable when the situation calls for it, despite how much they give each other grief. That already says a lot about him. There's Zachary, but around this hour he's probably still sleeping. If he has freelance work, it's very likely he's just gotten himself in bed. He's the last person I want to bother, if anything. The wait doesn't take long. Soon a click, then Ashton's voice echoes through the receiver, rough and still heavy with sleep. He never did grow fond of mornings.
Becca? Christ, what time is it? What's up?
Not you, apparently.
Good one. Did you call us early just to make that joke? I'm going back to sleep.
No, Ash, hold on. This is important.
Becca, stakeout last night. Make this quick. I've still got a few hours before the chief bothers me.
Sorry, I'll let you go back to sleep after. It's just that... Wait, you were on a stakeout last night?
Did I say that? Shit.
Nice.
Forget I said that. Forget I said anything. Forget we had this conversation.
So, you have no idea?
About what? About what? I also have no idea why we're talking so early in the morning, so there's that.
No, will you stop sleep talking or whatever for a second? Belle didn't come home last night. She's gone.
Who?
Isabella!
Instead of an answer, a brief pause comes after, followed by something blunt and heavy hitting a hard surface and a string of rather colorful curses from him. The moment might have been one of the many things I'll keep to myself and remember fondly in the next days, if things aren't the way they are. When he picks up again, there's no trace of sleep left in his voice.
Say that again, from the top.
Isabella's gone, Ash. She didn't come home last night. Her flat's empty. She left her telly running. You know she doesn't do that at...
Okay, Becca, stop. Calm down first. You're starting to panic.
I'm not!
You are. Breathe. One person's not going to simply disappear like that. This is Isabella we're talking about. Did you try calling her?
What did you think is the first thing I did? She's not picking up. It went to her voicemail.
How about Zach? Did you check with him?
Not yet. I didn't want to bother him. You know he has trouble sleeping and all that.
Alright, I'll go ask Zach. I'll call you back.
No, wait!
He ends the call before I can utter a single word of protest. But for the first time since entering this room, tension is gone from my shoulders, and my breathing has eased. The bread creaks as I sink down on it with a sigh. The telly still blares the same uninteresting news, and I'm surrounded by clutter. All the same, it feels strangely calm to be here without worry nagging me. I'll have to apologize to Zachary later for sending Ashton his way this early, but for now, relying on the latter for this isn't the wrong choice. It never will be. That's something I won't ever doubt in him, much like his promises. And true to his words, he calls back only a few minutes later after the last one has ended.
She's with Zach.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. She could have at least sent a message last night.
What are you, her mother?
It's one thing to hear that from Isabella, but from Ashton?
I don't want to hear anything like that from you.
I'm serious. You've got to stop treating her like she's one of your students, Becca. You don't have to keep tabs on her every time. Last I checked, she's only 3 years younger than the two of us. That's almost a decade gap from those kids you're teaching, you know.
Says the person who keeps calling her scaredy cat.
God, you're teaching 16-year-olds? No wonder why you hate it.
That's not related at all. Anyway, I'll go check how she's doing. Don't stress yourself out. You go ahead to work.
Wait, you? Don't you have a precinct to be at? Whatever happened to not treating her like one of my students? Because if anyone's going to ask me, I think you're doing the same thing.
Zach said it's an emergency. Something happened last night.
Emergency?
He didn't put in those exact same words, but it sounded like it.
Ash, what really happened? Is Isabella fine?
She's alright. She's safe. Zach let her stay the night after she... Look, okay. Z-Man wasn't clear about it, but let me handle this. I'll check on her. I'll bring her home.
It sounds like a lie if I've ever heard one. The sort where he omits things so people won't fret, and I'm not sure whether I should be happy he cares that much to do that. There shouldn't be a need for this between us, is there? We grew up together, didn't we? He knows I'm capable of at least hearing out the truth without it gnawing at me for the rest of the day. He knows me better than that. I know him better than that. Frankly, there's plenty of other things to say about this. But despite and after all the trouble he went through, of how things are moving at the moment, only one thought occurs to me. What should I say?
Hmm.
Hmm,
I have no idea.
Yeah.
like, he's
See-
already reassured us twice that he'll take care of it, and I'm sure he would at some point. Like, she's gonna find out. Eh,
Like, My whole thing about it is that I don't think Ashton would, as much as he is an asshole, I don't think he would,
I want to look at the conversation again
I don't,
just to be
yeah,
sure.
I don't think he would deliberately mitigate something from her if it wasn't exceptionally important.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that by trying to be like, oh, well, I can handle it, you're just gonna make it'll be offensive.
Yeah, that's you put it into much better words. So yeah, I'm kind of for the bottom one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Holy shit!
Dang.
I didn't fuck it up. Awesome.
Good job, Buttons.
Yeah.
I recognize his concern for what it is. It's not new for him to go out of his way for us, and to be honest, this is what I love about him. As much as I would have loved to take this off his hands, it'll only be selfish of me to insist, considering he knows of my other commitments. To do so feels like I'm trampling on that kindness he seldom offers to anyone.
Sorry for putting you up to this.
Nah, don't mention it. You've got other things you need to worry about. Take care of those first. This is a small thing.
I still owe you one.
Oh, I can name a few things you can do about that.
Run now!
You know, there's this ice cream shop that opened near the movie house. I could use.
Okay, let's stop right there. That's enough. On second thought, maybe I'll just think about it some other time.
Harsh.
We both laugh, the sound lighter and more comfortable. Like the old days, when a wayward 26-year-old is at the bottom of the list we need to worry about. This is how we find a common ground. We may not agree on a lot of things. We may see things the way the other does, but the give and take is something we've learned to get used to over the years. Whenever it's like this, confidence in him is the least I can offer as thanks.
Really, thanks for this, Ash.
I'll let you know what happened afterwards, I promise. I'll call you later. You have a good day. Bye.
I admit the way he puts it isn't comforting enough. He can be blunt like that. So many unknown variables, so many words left unsaid. I wish he'd simply lay them all out in the open, because like this, I'm more inclined to think there's an exaggeration on the other's part. If it's from Zachary or Ashton, I don't know. In the end, all I can do is wait, go about my day, and hope for the best. Before leaving, I spare Isabella's room one last glance, disturbingly quiet now without her in it. Unplug the TV!
Right?
Nice.
I'll get answers from her later. For now, my concerns are best left here. Or not. The rest of the day slips away in a blur. Despite my best efforts in keeping this morning's events from surfacing in my mind, it sticks. In a way, everything today simply feels like a reminder. Every conversation, regardless of how casual, every topic, no matter how mundane it seems. I blame the news entirely for this. Recent happenings brought quite a few interesting stories to everyone's attention, mostly superstitious talks of death. And when locals talk about death here, anyone can sure as hell count on someone bringing up that mansion Isabella sold not a few weeks ago. Even my own students won't stop yapping about it. I think it's even worse than when it was put back up in the market. Now there are more stories. If this is the world reminding me of what matters, or simply because the atmosphere around this time of year calls for it, I'd rather take the latter. At least then, I can be sure people will forget about it in favor of another set of holidays after. Nevertheless, and this may be a painful thing to admit, but listening to them is a pleasant distraction while waiting for Ashton's call. I hope he didn't forget. The school day is about to end soon.
No, that's got nothing with what I heard. No, really. Rowan knows about it. He used to be in the same class with them.
I can hear you from back here, you know.
Whatever, Rowan.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Does this
the story
have anything
goes
to do with like
this. There were
Yep.
three
disappeared
of them.
students?
They entered the mansion on a dare,
Yep.
and they were all never seen again. No one knows what happened to them up to this day.
Wait, he said, assuming this is talking about the kids on the camcorder, then there's still a fourth one that's unaccounted for. So this,
Which is probably Rowan.
What?
because
Were there?
we were talking, like he just said that there were
Were
3 students from the school who
Uh-huh.
went to the mansion, and so that might be alluding to the kids that we saw in the camcorder in Marianne's chapter. But if it is alluding to that, then there's still a fourth one unaccounted for. Because there were 3 that we saw, and then there's got to be the fourth one who was holding the camera.
There were 3 on camera?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't remember.
Scary shit, man.
Cock and bull story. Calling it now.
No, you don't get it. Why don't you ask Miss Gales then? Better yet, why don't you go inside the place? I'm betting my allowance you can't do it.
Oh lord.
Their talk immediately halts when I look up, all of them suddenly pretending to be engrossed in their current activity. Still, a word to put a stopper to this nonsense is needed. Creativity and imagination fostered by these stories is one thing, but reckless ideas should be corrected before anything potentially tragic comes from it.
Back to your worksheets, everyone. And I don't want to hear any talk of dares or going inside that mansion. It's private property now. You'd all better stay away from it before.
At the noise, the whole lot of them goes silent. You can almost hear a pin drop.
What's that noise?
It was banging.
Oh.
The look on their faces would have made for a funny.
What the fuck?
What
What
the fuck
is-
was that?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
that was creepy.
What?
Your voice just totally glitched out for like half a second.
Oh.
It sounded like someone screaming all of a sudden.
That's gonna be real fun on the recording.
Yeah.
It might have just been Discord, which in that case, it
Which is
probably wouldn't have
worse.
picked up on the recording. I hope it did. Maybe it was another ghost fart. The look on their faces would have made for a funny picture, but that's irrelevant at the moment. If that is a student loitering around, someone's going to be in trouble.
I'll be back. If you're done, you can leave your worksheets on my desk. Keep the noise to a minimum while I'm gone, okay?
No, Becca, don't go.
I can sense their eyes on me as I walk out the door. A muted kind of anticipation. A bit unnerving, but it's far more agreeable than the feeling of being watched I've been enduring these past few days.
Yikes.
Ooh.
Class is still in session for most of the rooms. In a few hours, once the final bell rings, however, this place will once again be filled with busy chatter and footfalls, an everyday cycle in itself. But for the moment, I let the silence guide me, my ears focusing on whatever sounds there are, or there will be, searching for that distinct clanging of metal. A good minute passes, and for the portion of it, only my steps echo through the halls. And another. I'm about to turn around when the sound of it halts my footsteps. It's a little muffled and infrequent, but it grows louder after each interval. Is someone like stuffed in a locker or something?
Does it sound like that?
Kinda. With the hallway devoid of people, if I don't put a stop to it soon, it'll start to disturb the other classes still going on. Looking for it doesn't take long. All I do is follow the racket, and shortly I'm standing in front of a nondescript row of unoccupied lockers. Well, something's in the locker. And from inside one of them, sitting in the middle, comes the noise, annoyingly disruptive now that I'm facing it. Like someone's pounding on the metal door from the inside, hoping to get out.
So, real quick before we continue, this might be another Silent Hill reference depending on what's in the locker.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh. Open it, Coco.
If I get the option, I'm not going to.
No, do it.
Leaning forward, I try to get a glimpse through the horizontal slat of whatever's causing it. But in this light, only darkness greets me, and another round of clanging. Louder than previous one. More desperate. I've heard stories before, from other schools, from a few colleagues who had to deal with it once or twice. Although personally I've never encountered one myself, I can only thank the heavens I haven't yet. But
If this is another kid some other student stuffed in a locker.
with a huff, I straighten up and study it briefly with a frown. Without delay, I reach for its handle end. At once, it stops. Immediately replaced by the muffled sound of a mobile phone ringing. I give the door a few raps before taking my attention away. A second. Another. When nothing or no one responds, I finally avert my eyes and I pull out my mobile. Ashton's voice greets me from the other end of the line, oddly cheerful in light of this morning's matters. Or maybe because I'm just expecting some grave or serious news from him. Instead, I get this.
Hey, Becca.
Well, you sound happy.
I do? My voice still sounds the same to me.
There are only two things I know of that could be the reason for that tone. Sweets, or he's gotten a good lead in his case. From the sound of it, I'm going to assume it's the former, since lately that case is all that's running inside of his head. If there's ever a third one, I've never heard of it. Yet. It can only be one of the two.
Ignore that. How's Isabella?
Drove her home a few minutes ago. I think she's sleeping now. Sorry this took a while. Z-Man gave us the puppy eyes after we tried to leave. Had some food prepared for us, apparently. We didn't have the heart to say no.
That's all right. Is she okay now?
I'm not really sure. She didn't say anything to Zach, but she mentioned a plan to take a few days off from work. It was a passing comment before I left her, so I didn't get to ask.
Must be because of Rose's death.
Could be. It doesn't seem like it from Zach's story, though. He said she was shaking when she got there.
Shaking?
The word triggers a memory. From 3 days ago, on the way home from her little treat after she sold the mansion. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I won't lie, it scared me. The terrified look on her face, how she sounded when she suddenly screamed.
Becca? Still there?
Yeah, I just remembered something. Sorry, don't mind me.
Look, if you can talk to her, get the story out of her. That would be great. She wouldn't talk to Zach or me even when I tried. Maybe she'll speak up if it's you?
I'll give it a go, but I can't promise anything, okay? You know how stubborn she can get. But thanks for letting me know about this. If you want, I can get you that ice cream thing you mentioned tonight. As thanks. Just as thanks for all the trouble I've caused today.
love to take you up on that offer, but I've got something on my schedule this evening. Maybe some other time?
Don't die.
Thanks a lot, Becca.
Blech.
Ah, the ghost got her.
There's a short pause before he cuts the call from his end, and once again I'm alone with my thoughts. But rather than answers, all I got from it are questions, more of them one on top of the other, as if the world isn't planning to give me a break anytime soon. But that's a problem I'll tackle later. Right now, I've got students who need to be taught follies of eavesdropping if the slightly open door and their smothered laughter from inside is an indication.
All right, enough eavesdropping. All of you, back to your seats. None of your business.
A quick scuffle follows that comment. If there's a retort prepared at the tip of my tongue, I drop every pretense of letting it loose on them. There's no use arguing with teenagers sometimes, boisterous as they all are. They're still kids, though. Rough around the edges, maybe, but still my kids. Shaking my head, I head back to my classroom with a smile, but not before taking a look at a glance at the locker again. It hasn't made a sound since.
Must be the wind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the wind, of course. Of course, the wind will shake only one locker.
That is 100% a Silent Hill reference. Same Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2. But still Silent Hill reference.
What?
Oh,
That's the
should I elaborate on that?
No, I just got distracted by like the middle set of windows here. Like I bet
Oh, it's
the
the trees.
trees, yeah, for a second I was like, what the fuck is that? But yeah, just for anyone, just go ahead and elaborate.
So in Silent Hill 2, there's a section where you're walking through. Oh man, I can't remember if it's the school or the
I think
hospital,
I
but
think it's
regardless, you're walking through a section that has lockers in it, and you hear banging as you pass one of them. And if you check it before the world transitions, it's empty. And he says the phrase must have been the wind, despite the fact that there's no windows in the fucking room. But then if you come back through once the realm has changed and you hear the banging again, you open it and there's a dead cat with a key.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
I
that's
didn't
weird.
remember that he said that exact line, but I do vaguely remember that. I was like, no, why the cats? But we will end this episode right here. Thank you guys for joining us, and see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Ahora es mi turno.
Buena suerte. Ve, es muy difícil. ¿Cómo? Yo creo que hay como otra dimensión ahí adentro.
No.
Para el otro lado.
O quizá puede decir no y por el otro lado. ¿Quién sabe lo que está ahí? Libertad.